Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Smart Investing Show. Tonight, we're talking about migrant farm workers, and we're thanking you for joining us for this discussion. We will have Gabriel Allahdua from Migrant Farm Workers with us, Justice for Migrant Workers. So thank you for joining, and let's go. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight we're discussing migrant farm workers. You know, my family comes from a generation of farmers. Many of them do serve locally in Canada, coming from the Caribbean to help us to put food on our tables. They help in growing vegetables, fruits, all kinds of grocery items that we consume. But there's also, you know, a very harsh price that's paid by migrant farm workers. And tonight we're going to be in conversation with Gabriel Allahdua. He's with the organization Justice for Migrant Workers. And he's going to give us a breakdown tonight of some of the issues, some of the challenges that migrant farm workers go through, and some of the things that they're investing in to try to make life better for them here in Canada. So welcome, Gabriel. How are you?
Hi, good night, everyone in Zoomland. Thank you for this invitation. I'm doing great. And one of the best investments we can do is in good health. And how
Right?
can we get good health without good food? And that is why I'm happy to be on this program, Smart Investing. And
For
Smart Investing
sure.
is good food.
Well, you know, they say that you got to feed yourself, and that then feeds your mind. So if you put good things in, only good things will then be produced from your mind. So you are right. It is a great investment to put great food in our bodies, and we have some very hardworking men and women who are helping to do that via those that come here from many different countries to help us in that respect. But tell us a little bit about your organization, Justice for Migrant Workers. Just give us a little history on that.
Okay, justice for migrant workers, as our name says, it is about fighting for justice, for fairness, for people who come to Canada, migrant workers, right? We are roughly 2 decades old, 20 years old. We are not a union. We are all volunteers. We are a political collective, and I'll explain that
Mm-hmm.
in a while. We have a wide range of skills and from different professions. What do? We educate people.
Mm-hmm.
We advocate. We organize, we empower, we try to inspire people, we pressure politicians, and ultimately, too, we try to push people to take actions. Why do we
Right.
do that? For a number of reasons. Why do we do that? For a number of reasons. If you look at this flag here,
Mm-hmm.
in my home country, red and white means love, red alone means danger. That red leaf, it means the danger that migrant workers face. And that
Mm-hmm.
is why this group was formed. Why? In Canada, it is legal to exploit the soil. It is
Mm.
legal to exploit the environment. It is legal to exploit workers. This group is there because we are fighting for a food system, a Canadian food system that is healthy, that is sustainable, and that is just. That is why we are.
That is great. And, you know, the more people like yourselves in this organization that advocates for that type of equality is the better the result will be. Because, again, we're all in this together, and we should be treated respectfully for what we do and given, you know, rights that everybody else should have as well. So continue that great fight that you are providing. Now, just to get into some of the information that I would like to find out, you know, we
Yes.
are currently in a COVID crisis, and you know, we constantly read about cramped environments for farm workers that you know they have very limited living quarters. Tell us about how you know COVID and this type of cramped space is affecting the workers, and what is being done to keep them safe.
Thank you for that nice and appropriate question. And according to somebody who said it so nicely, what COVID has done, it has exposed Canada's dirty secret. And this year so far, we are just in the starting of May, and so far 4 migrant workers have died. 4.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say? That tells you, that's a statement there already, right? That tells you that both our living and working conditions are difficult. COVID-19 not only has it exposed those conditions, but even you and I, and increasingly we're encouraged to stay home, right?
Yeah.
And by staying home, what does that mean? Increasingly, we're concerned about how reliable our food supply is because we're
Mm-hmm.
encouraged to stay home. How reliable, and also the borders are closed, but yet still, it is open to migrant farm workers because they are deemed essential. So what is in place for those workers? What is that saying?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you that the program that brings us to Canada,
Right.
the three pillars of that program. One, we are here to do jobs Canadians do not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in this year, when because of COVID, right, unemployment is so high, I was expecting Canadians to go to the farm and play those roles that migrant workers are doing. But
Right.
no, why? Why are migrant workers still, why is the border still open for migrant workers to come in? Because these are jobs Canadians do not want to do. And under what conditions are we doing this job? Migrant workers are deemed essential, but yet still they are denied hazard pay. Our living conditions, let me tell you four simple things about our housing conditions.
Yeah.
One, it is isolated. We are not
Mm.
integrated into society. We live in the bush, on the farm. We are the farmer's property, isolated. So it is overcrowded. Three, it is usually below standard, usually not regulated. And that
Mm-hmm.
is the reality of our houses. So isn't that the recipe for COVID to spread like wildfire?
Right.
And I'll expose more of those dirty secrets.
Aren't there programs in place, even from the government, that helps to cover costs or to help separation when that happens, so that they don't mix in with the other members and to get them infected as well?
Yes, there's some assistance from government to help with quarantine and so on.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is not standardized, right?
Mm.
And there are lots of challenges. It's not a standard story across the country, and that
Right.
is the reality, though. That is the reality. What do I have there? I have I have a soccer ball, a football in my hand, and that's the nature of the program. It is a lot of political football.
Mm.
You have a federal program, but
Right.
yet still the injustices are at every level of government. It's political football, right?
Right.
And nothing is standard. You have a federal program, but labor laws, it varies from province to province. Housing standards vary from province to province. So who's caught in that? Who's caught in that? Vulnerable people, the people who put food on our table. And these are some of the things I'm hoping to expose tonight.
Now, do you think it's more a provincial issue or a federal issue that needs to be fixed more
Um,
urgently?
okay, over 100 years, for over 100 years, Canada was founded on the labor of, let us start with the Chinese railroad workers, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Over 100 years, Canada continued to use unjust immigration and unjust labor laws. Now, let us start with immigration. Who's in charge of immigration laws? The federal government. Who's
Right.
in charge of labor laws? The provincial government, right? So it's at every level, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a federal program. So it's the federal laws. It's the federal laws that is really
Right.
at the root of it, right?
Well, I mean,
But,
we certainly
but
appreciate, the advocacy that you guys are doing, to, bring light to that, to deal with the federal government on those kind of issues. So we certainly are appreciative of that. One thing that did come from the government recently, federal government immigration, is that they are going to allow some individuals from various type of verticals, whether it be farm workers, whether it be international students, et cetera, to remain, to settle, to be able to get domicile here. Tell us how that works for farm workers and what are their options and how are they going to be able to somehow, call Canada home from some of these changes.
okay, thank you. That's a nice and appropriate question. When you have the government asking for 90,000 permanent residents from migrant workers, and you have on average 50,000 migrant farm workers, isn't that a great thing?
Mm-hmm.
However, let us on the surface, let us go deep, delve into it.
Mm-hmm.
The government is asking for 90,000, right? Out of that, 40,000 would be students. That
Mm.
leaves us with 50,000.
Right.
Out of that 50,000, 20,000 would be people from the healthcare. So that leaves us with 40,000. Now, are they asking for 40,000 migrant farm workers? No. Out of that 40,000, 95 different groups, people from different groups have to compete for 40,000, right?
Right.
That is one already. Whereas you have 40,000 clearly assigned for those students, when you have 20,000 just for health workers, but 40,000 for a whole group of 95. That is one. Number two, the English requirements, the benchmark, that excludes people, migrant workers. The benchmark for English. Let me
Right.
tell you, there's one worker who's interested in applying. He's all the way in Windsor. He cannot get this a center to do that English evaluation exam. He has to go all the way to Barry. What does that say? What does that say? There's so many things that are intertwined in that makes it literally that excludes migrant workers. But on the surface, you see there's something that's called political talk.
Right.
When the politicians say that, it is so easy to believe. But very few people, the average person will not question those things. And when you question, when you look into it, you'll see that it excludes, it's a total different thing, and it excludes people. And what are people is excluded? People of color. The people who put food on your table, people who've been there in a program for over 50 years. We are
I
good
totally
enough to
agree.
put food on your table, but we are not good enough to be treated fairly. Now, talking about status. Status in Canada, to the average person in Canada, status means, oh, being landed. That's what status means to the average Canadian. But what does status mean to a migrant worker? It means that if I have status, it means that I have an open work permit. And it forces my employer to create the conditions that would attract me and keep me. But right now, as it is, I have a tied work permit. I'm tied to my employer
Yeah.
to do the dirty work and not having status. You know what not having status means? It means that you're denied basic human rights, and it means that you're denied basic labor standards. Let me go over that. Not having status means you're denied basic human rights, denied basic labor standards, and I'm tied to my employer to do the dirty work. That's the program. By having status, it means I have an open work permit. By having an open work permit, it puts the pressure on my employer because, with an open work permit, I can get employment with anybody who would be willing to employ
For
me.
sure. For
So it
sure.
puts the pressure on my employer to create the conditions to attract me and keep me.
So,
How many people can qualify from that? Very little, next to nothing.
so from your breakdown, it definitely looks like there's not a lot of numbers there for farm workers when it comes to this new immigration allowance that they've talked about. Approximately how many do you see getting through? 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 after all of that's been taken care of, the other folks that they've identified?
If you want to hear numbers, you calculate for me. Listen to that. The same migrant farm worker I told you, who is all the way in Windsor, and he can't get a center to do that English evaluation. He can only get that center in Barrie, right?
Right.
In Barrie. But listen, that's one. Look at the distance. That's one. Number two, when can he get a spot to do that exam? In June. When is the program starting? The program starts on Friday this week, on the 6th. You get to do the exam in June. Where does that leave you, right? It's a first come, first serve. Where does that leave you?
Right. Right.
So it means that the playing field is not level, and the cards are stacked. The cards are stacked against migrant farm workers.
Right.
So in terms of numbers, let me tell you, in terms of numbers, I'll be happy and I'll be surprised if 100 migrant farm workers do qualify.
Now, we talked about it earlier, and you touched on it that, farm workers, they're still coming through because they're deemed essential. But tell us about some of the, once they land in Canada, tell us about some of the rights that they do have, or maybe even some that they don't have versus just local individuals who may be looking for work. What are some of the rights that you've been able to secure or they do have once they're here, as far as whether health-wise or work-wise? Anything you can share there?
Okay, in terms of rights, as I said, rights is tied to status. Not having status means that you're denied basic labor standards. So let's talk about it. I don't have status, so I'm denied basic labor standards. You know what does that mean? We do not get overtime pay. We work long hours.
Right. So even if they work 75 hours, there's no additional
overtime pay. What does that say?
That's
We
definitely
work
not
long,
right.
and not only just long hours. Our productivity, it is documented, and we had so many places that our output in a day. You know how many Canadians it would take to give that kind of output. You know that?
So what
And
can be done even for that particular instance? What can be done to change that? Is, where can pressure be put to make that change?
okay, let me start with this little piece of document I have there. And it's a political party in Canada. I want you to guess which political party would say that. That the program that brings us to Canada, it is so complicated that it is difficult to understand. And I'm trying to simplify it. It is so complicated, it is difficult to navigate, and it is impossible to get justice. That's what we fight it. So what do we need? What do we need? Status. What do we need? Status. What does the status mean? Status is that thing that allows us to have an open work permit to put the pressure on our employer. What do we need? Status. And this is something Canada have done in the past. People from Europe, they got status upon arrival. They even got land. It's not something that's new to the system, but because of the color of my skin,
Right.
Canada has turned 180 degrees. And status is that thing. Out of the 20 injustices that migrant farm workers face, status was that one thing. I call it, do you know what's Panadol? Do you know what's Advil? Do you know what's Tylenol? That's what status means to us. Status is that thing that will help us to take care of most of those injustices.
So with that being the hardest thing to get by, like how
Right.
can you mobilize more support behind that to fight that? I mean, status is the number one blockage. We need some Mack trucks, to be driving through that. How can you get some more energy behind that? What's required to defeat that? It may not happen in the day, maybe maybe a couple of years, but what's needed in order to push further on getting a good development there?
That is why I am so thankful for this opportunity to invest into our food. And that is what we need, people to become aware. What is really, really happening, what is really encouraging? One is the injustices that we face, they are human-made stuff. They are not natural laws that we face, they are human-made stuff. That's one. Number two, the other important thing for me, what I'm happy about, is increasingly, Canadians are questioning about the food. They're increasing their concern. They're concerned whether the food is being grown by those who respect the soil or those who exploit the soil. They're concerned whether they're exploiting the environment or respecting the environment. Increasingly, Canadians are concerned whether people who produce the food are exploiting workers or respecting workers. That is where the hope lies, right? That the people are now becoming aware. And awareness is just one step. The other thing is, the politicians are saying, oh, that's not an issue in my riding. Why? Why that's not an issue in my riding? A lot of people are not aware. It's one. And Canada is known as a country with a culture of silence. And that is why I'm thankful for this opportunity, because it breaks the silence, it brings awareness.
Right.
And when there's awareness, there's change, right? Change comes along with it.
And
that's
as
why
we
I'm
know,
thankful.
silence equals agreement. So, we can't agree with something that we don't necessarily agree with. So we have to make noise about it. We have to say something. I totally agree.
So for this program there, we're investing in our food and we're investing in the future.
For sure, because everybody who's watching right now understands, that reason that some of the food reaches your plate is because we have people working 70 hours a week without any overtime pay. Now just imagine you, the viewer, working 70 hours and not getting paid overtime. That's one of the things that the local farm workers have to endure. And my guest is certainly right, Gabriel, about investing in our food. Now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with some more opportunity to speak with Gabriel. We'll be right back.
This is not your regular show. It is an interactive section powered by the masses.
You go to Nigeria, you wake up, you go come. I just said now, I don't go to Nigeria.
Where we discuss issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. Slices of humor to keep you entertained and thrilled. We are the GPKM Street Talk Team.
Welcome back to the Smart Investing Show with your host, Dalton Brooks. We're on the GBKM network. You can also find us on the app, GBKM, iOS, and or Android. So feel free to download that. And stay tuned to all of our programming. We have 24-hour programming Monday to Sunday. So please check us out, and we'd be glad for you to do that. Tonight, we are in conversation with Justicia for migrant workers. Justice. That's what we seek. And we've got my good friend Gabriel Allahdua with us this evening, who've been so gracious with his time. And thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
Now, yourself, Gabriel, you were once a farm worker yourself, and from St. Lucia, and you've been able to navigate the system for a few years, and now settled in Canada. Tell us from you started way back when to today, what's been the most important thing that you've noticed that growth has been showed in, or that you've seen that's been accomplished? What would you say is the best thing that you've noticed when it comes to the treatment of migrant workers?
When it comes to the treatment of migrant workers, to me, the important thing is, to me, there's no standard when it comes to the program. Mm-hmm. The biggest, to me, the biggest milestone, the biggest achievement, I would say for me, is that the consumers are more aware about their food. They're more concerned and aware about the way the food is being produced. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the treatment of migrant workers, right, increasingly, and again, that's what the Canadian system is, right? Increasingly, it is getting more and more challenging. Why? Because who are the politicians loyal to? You, the voter, me, the worker, or their donors? And that is what that is very, very clear, right? That the politicians are very, very clear about that they are loyal to their donors. Right. And who are the donors, right? Are they aligned to workers, to voters, or to maintain the status quo, right? And what is the status quo? Very few at the top at the expense of the majority, and that is what it is. But as I said, the fact that increasingly Canadians are becoming aware, that is my biggest take so far.
Nice. And, we're here on this program to help spread that word as well, because we want everybody to hear loud and clear that we respect our migrant workers. We love them. We love the effort that they put in to what they do. And we certainly want them to be treated fairly and squarely versus just anyone else, in Canada. I mean, we are all humans, and we should all be treated accordingly. And I'm sure you'd agree with that. Do you know of any educational opportunities available to farm workers? Like once you land here, are there opportunities to learn trades? Are there opportunities to go to school? Is there anything in the system set up to make you better than how you came, to try to get you to a better place, a better paying position, a better job? Tell us about any opportunities there that they get, and or if you become permanent, if there's opportunities there. Anything that you can speak on there?
A couple of things. I worked on a farm, and there was a Jamaican farm worker. Mm-hmm. And whilst I was there, the Jamaican farm worker was on his 40th year in Canada on the program. 40th mm-hmm. year. And what was he? An ordinary worker. Mm-hmm. What was he? Every day he went to work, he had to make sure that he pleased the employer. At the end of the day, he had to make sure that his employer was happy with his performance. Mm-hmm. At the end of his contract, he relied on his employer to ask him to come back. What am I telling you? That being on the program, it makes you dependent, right? Mm-hmm. There is nothing, absolutely nothing available to make the farm worker, a migrant worker, better. Right. There are lots of resources in Canada, but the fact that you do not have status, that mm-hmm. the line is drawn. And right. where it is drawn along racial line. And they use, what do they use? Status to create that divide. So that is why they have one set of laws for people with PR, right. another set of laws for vulnerable workers, right? And as I said, Canada continues to play that game from the Chinese railroad workers. Canada continues to use unjust immigration laws, unjust labor laws to work together to mm-hmm. keep migrant workers vulnerable and precarious. So basically to exploit people, and that's what it is. And education is one way of climbing the ladder, but is kept away from you, right? And that is by design. That is by design. And that is why I go back to this here. It is difficult to navigate, difficult to, and impossible, and that is
Hmm.
what is by design, right?
For
And that is
sure.
why I'm so happy for this opportunity to invest into our future. Thank you.
Now, I know that it's by design, but we also have the opportunities by leaders of these countries when they sign these contracts to make them more friendly to their citizens. What is breaking down when it comes to each country signing off on these deals that they're selling out basically their citizens? Why does that happen?
I think you told me your roots, you have Jamaican roots, right? And in the Caribbean, Jamaica, when it comes to English-speaking workers on the program, Jamaica has a lion's share, right? And the other smaller islands, they look up to Jamaica for setting the pace, right? And I'm pretty sure you'd know that the Seasonal Agricultural Workers Program, it started in 1966 with Jamaica, Jamaica being the first country, right? And and the fact that Jamaica has so many workers on the program, they have the lion's share. People from other countries, they look up to Jamaica. But look at that. During COVID last year, the the government of Jamaica have the workers to sign a waiver, literally saying, go at your own risk. Whatever happens to you, you're on your own. I am free of that. You go at your own risk. The question is, Jamaica that should have all that leverage. Look at how they, and it's a legal program, right? This isn't agriculture. This is a legal program. But if you expect the government to be standing in your corner to have your back, yet still they're allowing you to go at your own risk. What does that say?
Right.
What does that say, right?
So are you saying that the government of Jamaica needs to do more because maybe some pressure needs to be exerted there?
Beautiful. That's what I'm saying. The fact that the Jamaican government has so many workers, right? They have that kind of leverage, and yet still, are they being bullied into a situation, or are they being resilient and fighting back? What are they doing? And that is a very loud statement there, right?
Now, some people will say that they're protecting jobs. If you push too fast, too hard, they'll switch to another country. There's fear of losing your workers to another country. How real is that?
Yeah. That is reality. And again, if you look at, there's that great program, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it, right? And to the audience, I would like to draw their attention to it. Life, Life, and Debt, DEBT. That program was produced in Jamaica, Life and Debt. That tells you, it spells out all those systems and organizations that creates that great divide, like the World Bank, the IMF, and so on, right? That creates that great divide, right? And what are the countries? What are the countries that are creating those institutions to create that wide divide? What are the countries? What are the countries that are using the global South for exploitation? And why is that great divide created? Why is it great divide created? What are the countries causing all those mineral extraction, causing all those pollution, causing people to move away, displacement? What are the countries? Where do they have their headquarters? It is a very complex system that we're talking about there, right?
For sure, for sure.
And the seasonal agriculture, because it's just one of one leg, one finger of that whole system of things, right?
For sure. Well, we certainly appreciate you helping to break that down. Now, you talk about life and death. And we do hear that a lot when it comes to migrant workers. A lot of them have died for various, reasons. Talk about that and tell us about the risks that they face as migrant workers and injury and death and what kind of resources are there for them when that happens.
Okay, a couple of things is, one, we are here to do jobs. Why do we have that program? We are here to do jobs Canadians do not want to do. During a time of COVID, when employment is so high, as I said a while ago, I was expecting Canadians to turn to just jobs. Why? Why aren't they doing those jobs? Because they are non-unionized work. Can you imagine the working conditions? Can you imagine the working conditions associated with non-unionized work? And that is what we are doing. We are doing all the D jobs in Canada, the dirty jobs, the dangerous jobs, the difficult jobs. Is it surprising that so many workers are dying? This year, as I said a while ago, at least 4 workers have died in Ontario. From 1966 to now, over hundreds of workers have died. Why is that so? Why is that so? The jobs are difficult, they're dangerous, and we do those jobs with very little or no protections. Why is that so? Not one inquest into work related deaths of migrant workers. Why is that so? Why is that so? Who the system is stacked against us. The
Right.
system is stacked against us. Who are the politicians loyal to? The workers, the voters, or their donors, right?
And when you say the system is stacked, I mean, I have to agree because just a few years back, the Supreme Court itself had weighed in and decided that agricultural workers could not unionize. They could not actually come together and associate. So the system as well failed there when it comes to the Supreme Court barring people from actually collectively coming together. So again, you are correct when you talk about the system being stacked.
And yeah, I can only repeat that here, right? It is impossible to get justice, right? Because the whole system is stacked against us, right? And it is so designed that they make it complicated that you cannot even understand it, and it is difficult to navigate, and they make us invisible, you know. So it is a well planned, well thought out system, right?
Well, thank you, sir, for joining us this evening. You've given us a wealth of information. I wish I had more time, but our time is up. So I'd like to thank once again Gabriel Allahdua for joining us this evening and sharing with us from Justicia for migrant workers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We know that food can be our best form of our medicine, and it can also be our slowest form of poison. Thank you for this time, because that is an investment in food, and I'm hoping that we can get a food system that is healthy, sustainable, and just. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And again, that is tonight's show, Smart Investment with Alton Brooks. We talk about investing in our food supply, investing in healthy food, but also investing in humanity. The people who work in these industries work extremely hard. And us as Canadians, we can't remain silent on the treatment that is being given to these migrant workers that come in from abroad, leaving their families, trying to find a better way to provide and possibly even to relocate families as well here. So to the governments, whether federal, provincial, municipal, if you are listening and watching, we need more action on this particular area. We need you to cut some of these draconian laws that are in place to keep down and keep a serf-like situation going with our farm workers. We need that to stop. We also need anyone out there who wants to advocate for this type of scenario to work itself out of our system to start doing that, because again, silence is meaning that you agree with what is going on, and I personally do not agree with it, and I have no problem with shedding a light on my show this evening to the plight of some of these migrant workers that go through this type of scenario. Thank you for joining us, and we shall be with you next Monday night. Have a pleasant week.
This is not your regular show. It is an interactive section powered by the masses.
Why you go to Nigeria? You wake up, you go come. I just said now. I don't go to Nigeria.
Where we discuss issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. Slices of humor to keep you entertained and thrilled. We are the GPKM Street Talk Team.
Yeah, this is Dr. Rod, the boss of all bosses, and if you don't know, then it's your losses. You're watching GBKM.TV.
GBKM TV, the station with a vision. GBKM TV, the station with a difference now. Slim Flex said so. Big up Ghana, up. GBKM TV, the station with a vision. GBKM TV, the station.